going to see what happens. We're going to see how things unfold. I think Donald Trump is the single most dangerous threat we face. I would imagine that there will be a number of other candidates in the race.
Would you be one of them?
I think I'll tell you what I am definitely going to do. I'm going to spend the next year between now and the election certainly helping to elect serious people, helping to elect sane people to Congress.
Of both parties?
Yes. Because I think that we could well find ourselves in a situation, given what we know the Trump folks are doing in terms of attempting to question the results of the election. We don't want a situation where the election is thrown into the House of Representatives and Donald Trump has any possibility at all of prevailing under those circumstances. So we've got to elect people who believe in the Constitution and who take their responsibilities seriously to Congress. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time doing that, in addition to other things.
But you're not ruling out a presidential run?
No, I'm not.
Okay, and we'll see you when your book comes out.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Okay.
Welcome Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. It's delusion. It's delusion. I just don't know. You had the book, right? You got the book. Said this on Friday too, Mitt Romney's book. You guys, listen, at least read the excerpts from the media reports when they come out so you can illuminate yourself on how Mitt Romney and the rest of the ruling class, like Liz Cheney, the sane people, of course, that kill millions of people over lies for wars, the sane people, that is. It's just unbelievable. Look, if you like the videos, don't forget to like them. All right, subscribe, share them far and wide. All right, let's get this party started. There is a lot of talk, obviously, about ballot access, and there's a lot of talk about the impact that RFK and West will have if they are on the ballot. And, of course, there's conflicting polling information, including our own that we did. And, look, I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm right. I'm right. It's easy to get wrong, and I know how it's easy that other people could get it wrong. I see what they're doing wrong, and I am right. I'm saying this with like a 100% level of certainty, if there is such a thing in this world. At this moment, I am right. All right, so we have this new poll out from USA Today. Suffolk University, David Peliogos does it for Suffolk University, and Susan Page and her colleagues wrote up an article on it. It's scary how close their polling is to ours. It's almost completely identical, but it does run counter to polls that were released last week from, let's say, Harvard, Harris, right? I think Harris X has Trump by 7. With RFK in the race, or maybe RFK and West. I'd have to go back and look. Yeah, it's RFK and West. And I think Trump like by 4 with RFK in the race. And I'm pretty sure that's because they're an online-only poll, and they're getting a bunch of disaffected Democrats that don't represent the entire electorate, saying that if they had a chance, they would vote for somebody other than a Kennedy, when at the end of the day, folks, they will not. They will vote for Joe Biden, or at least most of them will. Crossover is not significant in this country anymore, meaning how many Republicans vote for a Democratic candidate? How many Democrats vote for a Republican candidate? It's not, I shouldn't say significant. It's not substantial, but it is significant because elections in this country are won on the margins. All right. So a difference between 7% and 12% crossover can have a big deal. And if you're looking just on the surface, and you're seeing, well, look, he's pulling more from Democrats than he is from Republicans, you may think, if you don't understand that Donald Trump is going to win those Democrats anyway, some of them, it doesn't matter that it's only about a 3 to 5% difference. That is a Trump vote. If you don't know that, then you can just, for simplicity's sake, look at the party breakdown and think, well, it hurts Biden more. It does not. And then coupled with that, when you look at the independent vote and the vote of the people who come out in a presidential election, but do not come out in a midterm election, would otherwise come out for somebody like a Trump, but nobody else. If they come out and it's just Trump and Biden, Trump wins them by a much larger margin. With West on the ballot, he draws from them. Funny thing is, even with all the top line differences, right? It's definitely contradictory. Even in the polls that contradict us, they still show this happening. So why are some polls showing more, a more negative impact to Biden than others like ourselves in the USA Today. And it's very simple. It's how you weight the poll. Very simple. And a modest change in those weights will throw the whole out of whack. All right, so let's read this poll and then we're going to get to it, because the truth is, it doesn't even matter. Will there be will there be these independent candidates on the ballot anyway? Does it matter? In some states it will, some states it won't. That's the truth. It will be very, very, very difficult for any of these people to get on the ballot. And we're going to go over a couple of states and show you why that is. All right. So exclusive poll, Biden and Trump tie at 37 as RFK Jr. cost Trump a narrow lead. And this is something I think that they were right about. The arithmetic gets complicated. It's not simple. It's not cut and dry. It's not what everybody thinks. You have to understand what demographic groups are more friendly, regardless of what they may say about their party affiliation and where these voters are coming from. And by the way, just to clear the air, I did not say on Tim Pool's show that RFK hurt Donald Trump. In case everybody missed Jack Posobiec clipping over and over and over again what I was saying. If you go back and listen, I said, we will poll it, and if I'm wrong, then we will show I'm wrong. But you should not immediately assume that RFK is going to hurt Biden. What we did do was talk about the exercise that if he pulled those votes away from the primary that he's pulling away right now, and that's just people who don't really like Biden. If you look at his polls, even Democrats, if you look at his numbers, they're very soft and they wanted somebody else. It doesn't mean that when it comes down to it and it's time to cast early vote or it's time to go into a polling station, they're actually going to vote for RFK because they wanted somebody different in the primary. Just like it's not the case that, all of the underlings, I don't even know what you call them, but all of the should have dropped out by nows in the Republican Party, just because their voters are choosing somebody other than Donald Trump does not mean they're going to choose somebody other than Donald Trump when it comes down to him versus Joe Biden. Despite all of the calls, every election cycle, the truth is the crossover ends up being, again, not substantial, but significant only because even marginal support can cost or win you an election. All right, let's get down to it. It's a tie. Not really, but whatever. It's a tie. 1 year before the presidential election, Joe Biden and Donald Trump each command 37% of the vote in a new USA Today Suffolk University poll, with independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy costing Trump what would be a narrow lead. Kennedy, a scion of the nation's most revered Democratic family, won 13% of the vote in a hypothetical matchup, drawing voters who, by 2-1, said they would otherwise support the probable Republican nominee. Again, there's one statement that really matters in that paragraph, or I would even say one point that matters, and then a claim that is just incorrect. Kennedy is not the most revered Democratic family name anymore. It's not. Obama is. This is not the Kennedy Democratic Party. That party is dead. Long gone, buried. They have them at 13%. That is much more realistic. We have them at 10, 9 in one of the other hypotheticals. But of course, I don't know if they lean people here. And they're polling, if you look at the methodologies, it's a little bit different. So that's why they have their vote shares a little bit lower than us. They have it about 4 points lower than us. But overall, very tight race, close. The concept of a third-party run or multiple third-party runs has decreased the two-party vote share. I do suspect that that will rise again, because over the course of a year, it was trending down. People were starting to settle into the fact that this is a rematch of 2020, and they have to pick either Trump or Biden if they want to choose a president. And as a result, both Biden and Trump's vote share started to rise as someone else or third party began to decline again. Trump's rose faster. Biden's capped out in the low 40s. He can't get above it, which is why, by the way, the Marist poll is really the outlier. Okay. Everyone else is pretty much defendable. It's Maris that's just out there in left field. Anyway, drawing voters who by a 2-1 said they would otherwise support Trump. Progressive activist Cornel West, who also plans an independent campaign, is at 4%. His supporters would break to Biden if he weren't on the ballot. We think that's a little bit high, but it is. The survey findings underscore the complicated arithmetic and the unsettled politics of the likely rematch of the 2020 nominees, especially with the addition of at least one significant independent candidacy and possibly more. We don't have to go through all of them here, but Carl Hinckley, 85, retired Methodist minister from Moncton, Maryland, is a Democrat who plans to vote for Joe Biden, but he would consider a third-party candidate if the right one emerged. Quote, "We've got to do something that's different," he said in a follow-up interview after being polled. "The division has to stop. We have to work together." Book club. Who is that? Who is that book club? 85 years old, a retired Methodist minister from Moncton, Maryland. What is he so highly likely to be? It's not even funny. I'm going to look at I'm not going to give it away. I would like to see the comments in the section. Where did this person, probably his family, emigrate from? Look at his religious affiliation, look how old he is, and look at where he went. And he is a Democrat. Right. Well, let's talk about that, Blondie. I just saw your comment in the section. They banned you? What, they blocked you out of the chat or something? Yeah, I hope not. Yeah, I mean, look, guys, I'm glad you're moving over to locals. And many people start. Yes, PWH! Elon, absolutely. You guys got it. You guys got it. Even Sandy, I knew what you meant. This is a Yankee. This is a New Englander Yankee. Even if he's not from New England, his family, or you know what they can, there's the Northeast, and then there's New England. So we have to be very careful as to not upset anyone's delicate sensibilities. But this is through and through a Yankee. Desiree Whitney, 64, a retiree from Bourne, Texas, who voted for Trump in 2020, would consider voting for Kennedy in 2024. "I am supportive of him because he doesn't seem to be the Washington ilk," she said. Kennedy, who initially made his reputation as an environmental lawyer, has become an outspoken advocate of conspiracy theories on vaccinations and other issues. Understand something. The media is doing that on purpose. This is supposed to be an article on polling. This is not supposed to be their personal opinion about whether he's pushing conspiracy theories or not. I hate it. Hate it. Hate it when so-called journalists do this in an article about polling. Just report the data. Do not inject your own personal venom and bias into the article. Nobody cares, Susan. Nobody cares about your opinion. And we all know what you're doing anyway. She's listening to that word right there and then deciding this could help push more of his voters, more of Trump's voters over to Kennedy. She may not even know she's doing it. It may be completely subconscious. I would argue she's 100% conscious of what she's doing. She knows why? Because she studies the unlikely voter survey that USA Today has been doing for years. And she knows what I've been telling you. If Trump gets those people out, this is an early night. We're all going to go home by 10:30, 11 o'clock, and Donald Trump is going to win. And she don't want that to happen. So she's praying for Kennedy to pull away some of that vote because that's who it is. I don't trust government. I don't trust DC, but I don't trust either party. I don't like either party particularly much. I don't like Big Pharma at all. And then look what she says. How many times have I said this in the last couple of weeks? An outspoken advocate of conspiracy theories on vaccines and other issues. You mean like who killed his uncle? Because that's what these people believe. The American government has committed evil acts. The system is totally rigged against them, and there's not a whole lot they can do about it. If they go out and vote for somebody, they're going to want to go out and vote for somebody who's just going to try to wreck it all. And the system hates. And right now, whether people who support Trump want to acknowledge it or not, RFK has some bona fides when it comes to this. In case you didn't listen to the stream with Alex Jones and Barnes yesterday, which I tuned into some of. 1 in 4 voters, 26%, said they would seriously consider supporting a bipartisan ticket of a Republican and a Democrat that a centrist group called No Labels may field. Another 23% said they might consider it. It's depending on the nominee. And I have told you this before. No labels, go ahead. Liz Cheney, get on the ticket. Maybe Mitt Romney wants to head it up for you. Get on. Get on. Get on there and think you're going to pull Republican votes. Biden voters more likely than Trump voters, a lot more likely, 28 to 18, said they would take a serious look. Listen, no label, if we polled it, and we should put, because I've been telling you guys this, I want to start doing all these hypotheticals, and I want to lean people too, so nobody can hide, all right? Normally, we would not lean people until we got closer to the election, but I think it's a good thing for us to lean people now. And by the way, look, registered voters, 1,000, landline and cell phone, Tuesday through Thursday, 3.1 sampling error. So they're grabbing all these unlikely voters in there as well. They're not leaning them. I'm telling you, they're not leaning them. Like ABC, they lean them. Who else? I don't think Fox leaned them. Harvard leaned them. Not sure if Emerson did either. I'd have to go and look. But anyway, it doesn't matter. We should put no labels on there. We're going to forget about looking at the superficial. That's why this show is called Inside the Numbers. We are not going to look at the superficial, surface level crap. It is called Inside the Numbers because we are going to dive inside the numbers. A no labels candidacy is going to pull. Let's just take a state like Pennsylvania. A no labels candidacy is going to pull maybe even what they refer to as former Republicans, like that voted for Mitt Romney. They're educated, they're higher income, they're professional classers. They're part of the old, even waspy kind of crowd. Certainly Yankees, folks. Definitely. Look at Berks County, Pennsylvania, for instance, parts of Berks County. And then, of course, you have Montgomery, you have Delaware, not Philadelphia. Donald Trump does better in Philadelphia than other Republicans. But the surrounding rich suburbs in southeastern Pennsylvania, sure. And we're going to find out a lot of them have 4-year graduate degrees, even more. They have postgraduate degrees, and that's going to be a no-label vote. That is otherwise a Biden vote if no labels is not on the ballot. And then we're going to find, if we're using Pennsylvania as an example, we're going to find like Yankee Erie County, part, because there's part Yankee in there. It's definitely true. People who have vocational, high school education or a GED, maybe some that have a 2-year, but not as many, are going to be otherwise Trump voters. And that's where RFK's vote would come from. If RFK was not on the ballot, they would otherwise vote for Donald Trump. So I'm trying to use specific states and specific areas to get a lot more detailed and get a lot more granular on the impact of these candidacies. Not since billionaire businessman Ross Perot drew 19% of the vote in 92, enabling Bill Clinton to defeat President George Herbert Walker Bush with just 43% of the popular vote, has the prospect of independent bids threatened to upend the standard two-party calculations of campaigns. It is important to note, however, that Ross Perot had been a reformist, and he was also a billionaire. He had a lot of money. Why does that matter? And things have changed since then. Ballot access has changed, and we're going to talk more about it. In some states it has. With Kennedy in the mix, Trump would edge Biden 41 to 39, a lead within the survey sampling error. With West at 7%, or without Kennedy in the mix, excuse me. So West is drawing more from Biden. The 3%, look, what did West get when he was alone in this poll? 4%. Well, without Kennedy, the 3% who was pulled from Biden, goes to West, and West goes to 7. That's it, 3%. He's taking the rest from Trump. Without West in the mix, Biden would edge Trump by an even narrower 38 to 37, with Kennedy at 14%. Now he's getting a little bit higher. And I believe it was the three-way where Kennedy got the most with us. It was 10. With neither Kennedy nor West on the ballot, Biden and Trump would tie at 41%. And we know with the leaners from the other polls that's a Trump win. Despite months of legal, because it's not going to be 41%. It's not. Despite months of legal troubles, or perhaps because of them, Trump has strengthened his command of the Republican nomination. In the poll, he leads the GOP field 58%. 10 points higher than he was in the USA Today Suffolk poll in June, which was already, remember, it was in the Trump kind of bearish tranche. It was like everybody else had Trump like already in the 50s at that point. Some even had him touching 60. Emerson, others had him touching 60. IBD tip was clearly at like 55, and they still had Trump like in the high 40s. And it was like, what the hell, dude? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, then his leading challenger at that time, 23% still, which was higher than the RCP average, has lost half his standing. He's now at 12, only a point ahead of former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley. She is at 11, up from 4% 4 months ago. No other contender is higher than 3%. But here's the deal. Haley's capped off. Without other candidates getting out of the race, she's capped. And even if they do get out of the race, she's still capped. Trump's ceiling is higher than 80%. So this concept, like this exercise, going to like Mitt Romney and his donor friends and fight between her and DeSantis, fighting out who's the least loser of the two. They're acting like this is 2015 or 2016. And by the way, it wasn't even true in 2015 or 16. Consolidation doesn't work that way. I don't know how, I mean, I guess, guys, I'm sorry if I get like redundant, but I constantly see the same stupidity over and over again every single day. Yes, it's true that there's only a tiny, tiny sliver, bitter few remaining who still argue about electability and stupid things like that and consolidation and national polls aren't, it doesn't matter. These are decided by states, and in the early states, he's still above 50. Okay. And if you consolidated and got everybody out of the race and it was either Haley or DeSantis against him, he's going to clobber you 70-30 anyway if you're lucky. Not every, this is why am I getting a little annoyed here. Last night I saw an ad from Americans for Prosperity. Textbook example of a loser Republican groupthink pack who wants to go back to the pre-Trump days. Their whole entire argument, which they are spending millions of dollars airing all over the country, their whole entire argument is basically that we can go back to hoping for low turnout if we don't nominate Donald Trump. That was their argument to Republican primary voters in the ad. I wish Laura had the ability to pop in because we just turned and looked at each other like, wait a minute, whoa. So the strategy is only Donald Trump causes high Democratic turnout? They're not going to vote if Donald Trump's not the nominee. It's the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't care if Joe Biden's approval rating is 30%. 25%. By the time it's November 2024, Democrats are going to turn in a hell of a lot of votes. And the only way to beat them is to outvote them. Otherwise, the Republicans will absolutely lose. Pray for low turnout. Pray to God for low turnout. It's not a strategy. It's stupidity. But that's what the Republican Party was before Donald Trump. That's what they hope for. You don't remember? You were not old enough to remember 2012? You weren't old enough even to remember George Bush versus John Kerry? When turnout increased, everybody thought Bush was done. They were doomed. They were dooming at 3:30 in the afternoon. Oh, it's over. They're estimating 3.5 million Democrats came out more in than in 2000. We're doomed. Karl Rove had no idea those people voted for Bush. They thought it was over. 2012. It's not going to be like '08 again. Black voters aren't coming out for Barack Obama like that again. No way. Should go to the documentary Mitt, where he's crying backstage like a baby, Paul next to him, because he can't believe Neil Newhouse from Public Opinion Strategies, piece of shit, was wrong. Turns out they vote anyway. Who could have saw that coming? Though they're tied, Trump has a significant advantage over Biden when it comes to voter enthusiasm. Asked how to rate how enthusiastic they felt on behalf of their candidate, 1 being very unenthusiastic and 10 being very enthusiastic, Trump scored a mean or an average of 7.1. Biden was at 6.28. That's a big deal on the 1 to 10 scale. It is. It's not huge, but it's big. It's significant. And Democrats have early voting now. They have mass mail-in voting. Trump had an advantage in 2020, yet he still lost by 44,000 votes. Of course, in this poll, if I remember correctly, Biden was up 9 points, which is not the case now. Go and look at the crosstabs and you will see nobody else on the Republican side is going to get that kind of turnout. It is so obvious. Nobody else. And as Susan Page, who is the primary author, although co-author of this piece, will tell you, if you were to sit her down right now, the lower propensity vote that comes out for Trump, when USA Today asks those people, who would you come out for? It's only Trump. Nobody else even registers. They don't even register. So to my good friend Kurt Schlichter, you did say, Kurt, that when the evidence was overwhelming, you would stop with the nonsense. The evidence is overwhelming. You're going to get crushed. Nobody has a prayer in hell. Supporters of Trump who rank themselves as a 10, that is, as the most enthusiastic possible, include, are you ready? Listen to this. 50% of Republicans. Pretty strong number, but get this. 58% of union members. 58% of union members. Michigan. Auto Workers Union. Electric cars. Mandates. Anybody see that rally last month? That's a big deal. That's back to 2016. 54% of those ages, 50 to 64, his strongest age group, which you know from our polling. That is Trump's strongest age group. We do 45 to 64 in one of our bigger chunks, but we also do the 50 to 64 when we do age detail. And you know from our crosstabs, that is Donald Trump's biggest group. And why does that matter? Because it's the biggest age group in the electorate. Quote, compared to the people that he's running against, I think he's the better option because he exposed a lot of crap that was going on, said Dustin Gibbons, 34, younger, a Republican and a Trump voter from Queen Creek, Arizona. He's not a rhino, which we all know what it means. We don't need Susan to lay that out. Gibbons said he's not a lobbyist, or, he's not controlled by the lobbyists or the other parties. Now, that's important because it's a younger guy. It's a younger dude, 34 years old, excuse me. But some of the older people, which Trump's going to need every single one of them, would consider, if they are part of that overlap between RFK and Trump, they would consider RFK. In contrast, no demographic group of Biden voters match that level of enthusiasm. None. Backers who ranked themselves as a 10 included 29% of those 65 and older, 21% of black voters. That's it. And just 17% of Democrats. Here's what I'm telling you, because I'm getting really tired of this. Republicans nominated anyone but Donald Trump. Unlike exactly the opposite of what the Americans for Prosperity ad claimed. The exact opposite. They nominate anyone but Donald Trump, and they're going to lose. Mark, they are going to lose. I don't care what kind of crap I see every day. Nikki Haley +3. Nikki Haley would get her ass kicked. Biden would romp her everywhere. I'm not even sure she would carry freaking Florida. She's going to lose every Rust Belt state. Iowa and Ohio are going to be razor thin. I just don't see enough of the research triangle in North Carolina bailing her out when she loses all through Eastern North Carolina, 10% here, 12% there. Carteret goes from Trump +32 to Haley +16. I just don't see her making that up. And then Mecklenburg's going to come in with a wave of late arriving mail-in ballots, and that's going to wipe her out in North Carolina too. Haley +4. Give me a break. This is what everyone needs to understand real quick, or it's going to be too late, because I'm looking at Virginia, I'm looking at Pennsylvania, and Republicans don't seem to be getting through their stupid thick heads. You need to figure out how to get this vote out without Donald Trump saving your rotten skins every time. Without him on the ballot, you're all a bunch of losers. It's close in Virginia, but for the love of God, your governor has a 54% approval rating. This shouldn't be that close. Anyone who is elected or nominated to be the Republican nominee is going to go from having a +3 because nobody knows you favorability rating to -20 in a month and a half. Nikki Haley, they're going to paint a Xena warrior princess. She's going to be and all over every TV ad. Let's nuke Hamas. Let's nuke Russia. Let's go to war with these people. Let's go to war with those people. And by the way, we should bring in Palestinian refugees. And Michigan is going to go, no way, lady. Who's this crackpot? I wouldn't be surprised if South Carolina was low single digits. You kidding me? Use your heads for a second. My audience is smart. You know this is true. That's the one thing I think Harvard did get right, because they are online only and because of how they stratify their results. What do I mean by that too? I mean specifically that unlike a lot of other online panelists, they're not, I don't want to say compensating, but they're not considering or factoring when they do their weights that there are certain kinds of people who take online surveys more than others, which is why we preach mixed mode. But there's a higher propensity by some groups to be online more than others. And I think what they're finding there is not the high interest voter that it's like, whatever, Nikki, I haven't heard anything really horrible about her. So in a hypothetical against Biden, since I'm unhappy with Biden, I guess I'll just choose Nikki for right now. That's what's going on. Meanwhile, you people have seen it when we've done it in our polling. She hasn't exceeded 36% in our online collection. Never. And you have NBC, CNN, Fox News, others. Haley at like 49%. It's a generic. You might as well stick a freaking generic name in there. But at the end, the bottom line is they're not going to vote for her. And I'll still look, I've been a big critic of the DeSantis campaign, offering at first constructive criticism to a bunch of amateurs who don't know what the hell they're doing. And they went scorched earth on everybody who tried to do that. But still, I will say this because I am intellectually honest. There is no way Nikki Haley is outperforming Ron DeSantis in a presidential election. I'm sorry. Maybe Ron has pissed off so many people now. It's possible. But, Nikki is a particularly weak candidate. Only a Yankee yuppie donor would think otherwise. Get out and see the world. Again, no demographic group of Biden voters matches the level of enthusiasm that voters have for Trump. Not a single look, 17% of Democrats versus 50% of Republicans. Trump, 58% of union members. That's huge. So again, when you're talking about the impact of Kennedy, it's like you don't want those people, those union workers, to consider voting for anybody other than you if you are Donald Trump. And honestly, I went back, I looked at the Rust Belt region, the Big Six region itself in the last survey we did. And the state that Kennedy really seemed to be hurting Trump the most was actually in Pennsylvania. Ironically, it could be because of the sample sizes, but ironically, Michigan was roughly kind of even. It was Pennsylvania where Trump was being hurt the most. Maybe that's not, by the way. Maybe that is not unexpected, considering, again, we're reading that book that's on my desk right now that was in the shop before, and I'll put it up right now so you can see it again. We're reading The Emerging Republican Majority right now. So I know some people maybe haven't read it, don't know what I'm talking about, but you can really, we think about Pennsylvania modern days as a T, right? The T. And you have the conservative regions of the country, and it used to be Southwest was Democratic, Southeast Democratic, because you had Philadelphia, and then you had Allegheny, which is Pittsburgh, right? But then the rest of it flows out. T is conservative. That's how Pennsylvania politics works. But in truth, there's Yankee Pennsylvania, which covers parts of the southeast, right? And then the northern parts of the state, all the way over to Erie County, parts of Erie County. So maybe if you're pulling away some of those Trump voters that are in the remaining, specifically Catholics too, that's problematic. Even if Trump does better with Catholics against Joe Biden, which he is right now, he's doing better than he did in 2020. Even if that's the case, if RFK pulls some of them away and Biden does better, then we just read about the Methodists, right? That Biden does better among those English descent white groups, and Kennedy pulls some of the German ethnicities and Italian ethnicities and Irish ethnicities. That's a problem for Donald Trump. So maybe it does make more sense. I just was a little bit surprised that, the harder states for Trump to win, like Michigan and Minnesota, didn't seem to have that kind of disproportional negative effect on Donald Trump that Pennsylvania did. All right. And there was some in Iowa as well, but Trump is so ahead in Iowa. It was like Trump plus 13. It was huge. And we can look at that. All right. Just bear with me, because I want to go over ballot access. So we did this. There was one more thing I thought I wanted to show you. One enthusiastic supporter of Biden, Democrat from Lincoln, Illinois. She's a retired cosmetology teacher. Biden up now 73-11 in the primary because Kennedy's out. Marianne Williamson is a crackpot. Sorry, but it's true. His approval rating is 40, 56% disapprove. The intensity is running against him. Only 13% say strongly approve, while 3 times that number, 41. This is almost identical to our poll. This is scary. Only our strongly approve, I think, was a little bit higher. Wasn't it 16 or something? I'd have to go check it out. You guys probably know better than me. No, seriously. It's because I got all these other numbers in my head from the trend. I want to say it could be 16, 19. I think ours was higher. What would it take to dislodge Trump supporters? Nothing. Really nothing. I mean, the numbers are so low. All right. A majority is baked in. They won't do anything. Oops, I clicked on it. So that's the end of that. I think it said, 15% said they might not vote for him if he's in jail. In other words, the primary is over. It's over. Okay? No more. Show over. Go home. Return ticket. It's over. All you're doing is preventing the man from spending general election money. It's time to, this is really sad. Somebody needs a reality call. Just want the meme wars to end. So you started a war. You know what? They kind of remind me of Palestinians a little bit. All right? I'm serious. They start a war, then they get their butts kicked. And when they get their butts kicked, they all of a sudden want mercy. And they want things returned to them that they lost and put at risk from starting a conflict in the first place. They're the only ones in the history of Western civilization that would even consider that, asking something like that. You start a conflict, you lose station, you lose position, you lose stature, you lose credibility. I just want it to end. You shouldn't have started it. Now you want mercy? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to give that to you. All right. Anyway, he's a case study and how to effectively commit, suicide. He is. Before we get into ballot access, which I want to talk about here, listen, one of the biggest mistakes ever was putting a countdown clock on your campaign. What are we at now? Day 2. How many more? Wait, we can find this. This is what you will see if you Google it. Days left for DeSantis to beat Trump. Every day you gave your enemies something to criticize you for. It's one of the biggest mistakes I think I've ever seen. Because, of course, every day that goes by that you don't right the ship, you're going to get mocked. You're going to get caught in the negative headline loop. And it's all over. What did they say? 60 days to beat Trump, 30 days to beat Trump, or something like that? I mean, it's one after the other. There it is, 30 days left. That's Florida politics. Washington Post, USA Today. And it's unbelievable. It's everywhere. And the Trump campaign literally puts something out every single day. Every single day. You go to donaldjtrump.com/news. Okay. Every single day since Jeff Rose said that, they've put something out. Not a day has gone by where they've missed it. And many media outlets pick it up. Basically on a daily basis. Kiss of death. Countdown. 2 days left. Here, let me show you. It is going to be a case study. It is going to be a case study. You watch. You're absolutely right. It will be a case study on how to destroy a campaign. What they never understood was, first of all, the attempt to go scorched earth and destroy everybody and attack everyone was incredibly stupid. There are people that have credibility with Republican primary voters. Going after them is absolutely ridiculous. Here we go. October 22nd. They got 1 day left. Ron DeSanctimonious and his campaign are still seething after they were absolutely bodied by reports yesterday about how their social media obsessed team has lost the political war. I mean, it was bad, guys. It was in the New York Times. Did you read it? It was reprinted by others as well. But just talking about it, and by the way, the Dilly Meme team gets a tremendous amount of credit for this. People thought, you're pushing. I'm not pushing them. I'm recognizing what is effective. And back when they were damn near tied in the polls, by the way, Brendan Dilley and his meme team, loyal as could be to Donald Trump, just went to work. And if you couldn't tell that they were being effective, then you just don't comprehend what wins and loses hearts and minds in this modern age. Jeff Rowe goes out there and at some point says, 60 days. We got 60 days to beat Trump and we need $50 million. I don't know what he was thinking. This is a man who attacked Janera Peck because Janera did not have campaign experience at the presidential level. I don't know why he hired somebody who only knows how to run a gubernatorial campaign. Running for governor is not the same as running for president. Well, okay, Jeff, you haven't won a single presidential campaign. So do you want someone with fresh experience or do you want someone with experience of being a loser? Because one of the biggest amateur hour mistakes made by the Trump campaign DeSantis campaign and DeSantis' surrogates with the PAC or the campaign itself was Jeff Rowe imposing this deadline. Also in the New York Times article was the ridiculousness we all had to suffer while they ran out that just absolutely rookie rollout on Twitter. And then we all had to watch painfully as they tried to spin the crashing and the glitching and as some kind of like positive response. He's breaking the internet. Your job is to protect your candidate. And he was surrounded by a bunch of immature amateurs with thin skin who cared more about their own feelings being hurt than whether or not their behavior, their decisions, and their statements were further embarrassing their candidate. Sure, it's on Twitter. It's on Elon Musk that the announcement didn't didn't actually roll out right on Twitter. But it's on the team that they put him in that vulnerable position to begin with. With further compounding the negative by locking everybody else out, the normal public, out of the Four Seasons. Well, they sat down with a billionaire on his new platform he bought for a toy to announce his run for president. And let's not forget, don't ever forget who did this to you. Don't ever forget who tried to deceive you. Do you not remember Laura Ingraham coming on Fox News that night? This was the most brilliant thing ever. Oh my God. And he broke the internet. He broke the internet. Why am I telling you this? Because this is someone who claimed to have learned their lessons from the Iraq War. That's what they told. That's what she told you, looking dead ass at the camera. This is someone who refused to tell you she was friends with Karen Taylor Robeson. And when she was on Fox News and a vote share came in that was for Karen Taylor Robeson, she incorrectly said it was for Maricopa and the race was over. These are people who knowingly make false statements. Because rest assured, they're going to do it again. They're going to put their chameleon suit on. They're going to come back to Team MAGA and they're going to pretend. And all along the way, they're going to do things like tell you there's some like benefit to a special counsel investigation that wants to put the president in jail. Byron York is another one. No, he lost like Al Gore lost. He lost like Hillary Clinton lost. Yes, that's right, Byron. I totally remember that. They're absolutely comparable elections. That's right. I remember for Al Gore and Hillary Clinton, they unleashed a deadly pathogen on the world to upset society and completely reform the electoral system. I remember when that happened with Al Gore. Sure. I remember when every intelligence agency, every alphabet intelligence in the country decided to wage a disinformation campaign against Hillary Clinton. Out of here. Clown. Fucking clowns. All of them. I don't understand why it's so hard for people to be honest in the era of Trump. I just don't, guys. I never understood it. Ballot access. Let's get the first part of this in. All right. Just jumping on thumbs chewies. All right. In truth, all we have to really be concerned about is a few states, right? Does it really matter if RFK gets on the ballot in California? Or if Cornel West gets on the ballot? I mean, really, let's be realistic, right? Now, it could be impactful in a state like Illinois, maybe. There's some others. Like I've said, I did say on Tim Pool that I think in Maine, West could, Kennedy, even alone without West, could potentially cost Joe Biden the state of Maine. And I think, honestly, the state of Maine is probably going to be closer anyway this time. If it would be today, let me put it that way. If the election was held today, it would be today. 2nd congressional district is definitely going. And rest assured, Biden is not going to enjoy an 8 to an 11-point lead. It would be mid to low single digits. And if you put Kennedy on the ballot and things go a little bit more wrong for Joe Biden, he could lose the entire state of Maine. One thing I can't stand about that circle is there's no way to like quietly drink. You guys have circles, you know what I'm talking about? They're really cool. I love them, but it's like so damn loud. All right, Florida. You can get we often, I think when DeSantis was running for governor in 2018, it was like seven candidates for governor on the ballot in Florida. And there used to be a history of a significant third-party vote share in the state of Florida. You go back to 2020, you go back to 2004. There was, some appetite for that in the state. However, Donald Trump is so popular, and with the general electorate, especially that Jo Jorgensen, who was on the ballot, she got about 70,000 votes, a little bit over, 0.64%. Howie Hawkins, he got 14,700 and change. Roque de la Fuente got a little under 6,000. Gloria La Riva, I don't even know how to say, got a little bit of a 200 less, than La Fuente. And Don Blankenship got a little less than 4,000 votes. Florida is one of the more easy states to get on the ballot, and I would expect that both West and Kennedy could get on the ballot in the state of Florida. We're just talking, let me just read over some of it, and then we'll get into it. But again, we've polled it, if you guys remember, and I could show it to you again, but with Kennedy and West on the ballot, Donald Trump had significant leads in the state of Florida. So it really doesn't matter. I mean, it was like the difference between Trump plus, and then let me log in and go to the home page here. I mean, it was the difference between Trump plus 5 and Trump plus 7 or something. I mean, they were ridiculous leads. Here we go. And I'll show it to you in a second, but no, sorry, Trump plus 8. That is with third parties on there, just generically. With Biden versus Trump versus West, it was Trump plus 9. With Biden v. DeSantis plus West, it was even, which is a scary thought. Green Party got about 1.4%. Write-ins got 1% and change. Undecided was still about 7%, but you can clearly see Trump's vote there was locked in and Biden was getting crushed. I mean, so Florida is not that one where you really have to worry about whether or not it's going to impact the election. Donald Trump's going to run away with the state of Florida. To be recognized as a minor party in Florida, a group consisting of more than one person must file a certificate and copies of the minor party's constitution, bylaws, regulations, and rules with the Florida Division of Elections. The certificate must include the following information: the name of the minor party, the name and addresses of its current officers, including members of its executive committee, a completed statewide voter registration application for each current officer and member of the executive committee showing their affiliation with the proposed minor party. The copy of the minor party's constitution and bylaws, regulations, etc., must include some of these, all very easy to get. All right. So what do you have to do? All right. You need to pay a fee to get on the ballot if you want to get on the ballot in Florida. If collected, the party assessment fees are equal to 2% of the salary of the office being sought by the candidate and must be paid with other fees at the time the candidate files. So again, you can do this with money. If 5% of the total number of registered state voters of the state affiliate as members of a minor party by January 1st preceding a primary election, that minor party will be considered a major political party. All right. So it's not hard. All right. That's one of the easier ones, and it's actually in order, and it's a good thing to start with that. But again, not that big of a deal when it comes to the overall impact of the election. This one, however, is a big deal. So Georgia is essentially the place where independent campaigns go to die. All right. In 2020, for instance, and again, when we're talking about independence, it's a lot different than libertarian in many of these states, or green. So when Cornel West gave up his status as a Green Party candidate, some states immediately you can qualify, with some added signatures and a fee. If you are on a party that's already been on the ballot, already basically registered as a party, even if it's a minor third party like the Green Party. Independents are much, much more difficult. All right. So there were others who attempted to get on the ballot in Georgia in 2020. They were booted. Only Jo Jorgensen ended up on the ballot, and she took about 62,000 plus votes. All right, 1.25%. It is, if we were rating between easy to difficult or very difficult, super, Georgia would be on among the hardest to get on. And Florida would be on one of the easiest. Wisconsin can be easy too, if there isn't lawsuits flying around, which expect there will be. All right. But, as a matter of the rules, it's really not that hard to get on a state like Wisconsin or Florida. Georgia is a whole other story. The best option is typically a write-in option if you want to run as an independent in the state of Georgia. There hasn't been an independent candidate on the ballot in Georgia since Ross Perot in 1992. There's a whole lot of court things going on right now. And this is, I'm going to read not everything, but where's the 1% rule? There's a 1%, which may have actually gotten even worse with there's the 1% rule. Okay. So let me read a few parts here. To be recognized as a party by the state, a party's candidate for governor or president must have received 20% of the vote cast for those offices at the last general election. Well, that has not happened. If the group does not, the group is considered a political organization. And then you have to now follow the rules in Georgia of registering a new political organization or a candidate who is being registered as a political organization. So in Kennedy's case, it would literally be, or West's case, Robert Kennedy for president. Cornel West for president. Once a political organization is registered, which you have to go through all of this to do, and it better be in the right time. This is why Kennedy was saying, you see these at least 60 days before any election, including primary, comes. That's why Kennedy kept saying, in many of these instances, depending on the state, I've got to make my decision by October 14th. Because he's going to hit a deadline. But we're going to assume that they were able to at least get their organizations registered. So the political organization can nominate candidates by convention if one of the following criteria has been met. If at the preceding general election, the political organization's candidate for statewide office received a number of votes equal to 1% of the registered voters who were eligible to cast in that election. Well, unfortunately, for anyone running as an independent, what, guys? If their organization is separate from any party and it has to be registered as a new political organization, then certainly there will be no organization that was in a prior election that could be used as that benchmark for the vote. So they have to, this is not an option for them. If the political organization files a petition signed by a number of registered voters equal to 1% of the registered voters who were eligible to vote in the last general election, this petition must be filed by noon on the second Tuesday in July. If the political organization does not qualify to nominate its statewide candidates by convention, those candidates must be nominated by petition, as district and county candidates are, following the same requirements that apply to independent candidates. All right, so what does that mean? What would that mean in practice? Well, let's go take a look. They are trimming, and this is something that the Trump campaign has been pissed about. They said Crappy Burger and Hemp Smoker couldn't get all of the inactive voters off the rolls before 2020, didn't care enough to try to do enough before 2022, couldn't get rid of people who had change of address flags, right? Yet when they started to purge people recently, they weren't legit purges. Many of them ended up getting purged from the voter file, and they were legit Trump supporters. And it was like, what the hell? How did that happen? Right? It was like 12,000 of them. Anyway, as of right now, though, we're talking about over 7 million voters on the way to 7.2. That means Kennedy would need to gather 90, 100,000 signatures. Why? That's not 1%, Rich. Because you're going to need 70 plus, maybe 75, 78,000 that are valid. They will absolutely challenge these signatures, which is ironic because they never challenge any of them for the absentee ballots that get mailed in or dropped off at a drop box. But they do when it comes to ballot access. You betcha they will and do. So you need a lot more signatures than you think you need for that 1%. And this is not just only Georgia. It is highly likely that their best option, both candidates, would be to wage a write-in campaign, which is, of course, folly. There is a reason why Ross Perot is basically the last person to end up legitimately on a ballot in Georgia. So what does that mean? It means there'll be a Libertarian Party candidate. Even the Greens couldn't get on the ballot in Georgia last time. I see it's 101. I want to go through a lot more states than we are. But Georgia is truly, oh my God, I missed Arizona. We got to go back to Arizona. Georgia is truly problematic for West and Kennedy. And I would not expect either one of them for their names to actually appear on the ballot. I just wouldn't. All right. I just don't see that happening. It's a state that Trump will absolutely, well, I mean, he doesn't have to win it, but it's like, if you're not going to win Georgia, then I don't see how you're going to win some of the other ones. Although it is possible that he can, do a Rust Belt sweep and then not need Georgia. But that would, God, you don't want to do that if you're a Republican, especially if you're Donald Trump. You're not trying to do that at all. You're trying to win all of those and then pad your margin with 20, with the 20 plus electoral votes from this one. And now you're not trying to leave it to come down to Pennsylvania and Michigan or something like that. You want that to be icing on the cake. Your easiest bet would be Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin. I'm out. All right. Of course, you're going to get Iowa. You're going to get Ohio. Well, Trump is. It's not obvious that the other ones will. And in fact, it's pretty obvious to me that the other ones could lose both of those states. All right. Let's take a real quick break. When we come back, we'll go over Arizona, which I missed. All right. Let's talk about a great deal from our friends at Jam and Bean. They sent us a whole bunch of new popcorn that was absolutely delicious. Creamy dill. I love dill. I like dill. It was the bomb. The sour cream and onion is good as ever. The buffalo is a little, I love what they did with the buffalo one now. It's, if you're like me and you like a little bit of spice, it's amazing. But of course, guys, look, it doesn't matter if you're a K-cup drinker or you also like to get your coffee freshly roasted like that so you can grind it yourself and brew it yourself, which Laura and I like to do both. Jam and Bean has got it all, and they are fantastic at it. By the way, Michigan-based COVID Patriots, all right? And if you go to Jam and Bean, JAMNBean.com right now, and you sign up for a new subscription, use the promo code TPP40 at checkout, and you will get 40% off your order. 40% off. The gourmet popcorn, the tea, the coffee, it's all amazing. And they've been doing freeze-dried candy lately, which I absolutely adore. I do. And it's expensive if you just buy it in the supermarket. They are very reasonably priced. If you like those old school honey things, remember the honey things that you thought were going to like rip a filling out or maybe even a tooth? They do a freeze-dried version of that. That is super easy to eat. You just suck on it, it dissolves, and it's delicious. All right. But again, whatever subscription you sign up to for whatever, use the promo code TPP40. You'll not only get 40% off right off the jump, right at the bat when you sign up, you're still going to get 10% off every time the subscription renews each month. All right. So try different things. I have the one of the signature blends right here, which I like quite a bit. Penitent Man. It's a signature blend. Cupping Notes, milk chocolate, almond. It's a medium roast. I'm a dark roast kind of guy. They have different things, but I like a medium roast a little bit later in the day because I get freaking heartburn from dark roast if I drink it too late. All right. But yeah, their medium roasts are really full bodied and they're delicious. So again, one more time, put it on there it is, jamandbean.com. Use the promo code TPP40 at checkout. And folks, we love to hear from people on their feedback. So please send us your feedback. We always get great feedback from Jam and Bean. People very much enjoy it for good reason. All right, let's get back to Arizona. How the hell did I miss Arizona? So important. All right, so again, real quick recap before we get back to it. Florida, easy. Georgia, not easy. Ross Perot, the last one to be truly, like I'm an independent, to get on the ballot. Green Party candidates have had a tough time. Reforms used to have an extremely tough time. Libertarian, because they have a history there and there's a libertarian vote streak in the state of Georgia, and because they have things that Kennedy and West don't have. And I keep saying this, West made a major mistake leaving the Green Party. It's just dead. You may not like everything they stand for, but they have experience and they have an infrastructure. And they know how to get on the ballot in some of these states. But again, even Green can't get on in Georgia. So if we're looking at states that are on a spectrum, you have Florida on this side, super, super easy compared to others. And then you have Georgia, very difficult. Just kind of forget about it. It's not going to happen. And with the best bet being that you're going to be a write-in candidate. All right. So a bit of a joke, So why are we polling? Because it does matter until we know what's going on here. It does matter. So Arizona, let's go up. You have 3 parts here: qualifying for ballot access, maintaining ballot access. All right. And hold on one second. Hold on one second. You probably don't hear it because of the good, the good new tech we got. This is an upgrade in equipment, camera. You see every wrinkle in my face, but hey, it's a brighter picture. And the microphone, I don't know if you can hear them or not, but it's my kids. They're teacher workday. All right. So this thing about teachers are heroes. I don't know. Are they? Sorry. Yeah, look, there are great teachers. There are, but they seem to be pretty damn lazy to me these days. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them lazy. I got to keep them on the ball. Let's talk about qualifying for ballot access. Read it, and then I'll dumb it down for everybody to, not you need to dumb it down, but Arizona, again, is in one of the very difficult categories. All right, just to give a real quick recap, back in 2020, again, it was just Joe Jorgensen on the ballot. There were others who absolutely tried to get on the ballot. You had Howie Hawkins, Don Blankenship, Kanye West, others all tried to get on the ballot. It did not happen. All right. And Joe Jorgensen took a little over 51,400. She took 51,465 votes, or 1.52%. It is very hard to get on Arizona's ballot. Qualifying. To establish a recognized political party in Arizona, the group wishing to qualify as a party must file a petition with the Arizona Secretary of State. Considering it's Adrian Fontes, Democrats could expect at least some kind of preferential treatment if they feel like it's in their way, but still, it's difficult. This petition must contain signatures from registered voters equal to at least, are you ready? Because it's a big deal, 1.33% of the total votes cast for governor at the last general election. Well, that was a high turnout. Very high. Very, very high. In truth, it really is about 3%. Why? Because signatures get junked in Arizona, and they get junked easily. In order to gain statewide recognition, signatures must come from at least 5 counties. And why is this difficult in the state of Arizona? Because there aren't that many counties. Mojave, La Paz, Yuma, Pima, Pinal, Maricopa, Yavapai, Coconino, Navajo, Apache, Greenlee, Graham, Gila, and Cochise. Did I miss Santa Cruz? Santa Cruz, yep. And then, of course, Pima, right? So why does that matter? Because the population is highly, highly, highly concentrated in Maricopa and in Pima County. And there's this exception to this. There's this addition to this rule. In addition to 5 counties, at least 10% of the total number of signatures must come from registered voters in counties with populations of less than 500,000 people. It's tough. It's tough, guys. This petition must be filed 180 days before the primary election. If the Secretary of State determines that the party has submitted enough valid signatures, the party will be recognized. Once recognized, the party will be represented by its own ballot in the next regularly scheduled primary election and accorded its own column on the general election ballot. If you want to maintain it, there's additional factors to consider here. So again, I don't think Kennedy would appear on Arizona's ballot. That's what my impression is right now. You were going to need, last time I saw somebody try to do this, I think it got like 1/3 of the signatures junked. So if you need something like 40,000 and change, hell, folks, you're going to need like 65,000 signatures to be safe. And they're going to have to come from counties that satisfy the rules for qualifying from ballot access. You can't just go and gather them all in Maricopa County. You can't just go and gather them from Pima County. You're going to need 10% of them to come from really every other county that's not Maricopa and Pima. I mean, it's so difficult. I'm just looking around and seeing like Yavapai is you could do that, but Yavapai's Republican. So even if Kennedy has got some support in Yavapai, it's going to be tough. That would work to the benefit, I believe, of Trump. I've seen libertarian candidates actually hurt the Democrat in Arizona, not the Republican. I've seen it go both ways. But I think it would be to the benefit of Trump because I don't know that you're going to have some of the remnants of the McCain wing, and they get smaller and smaller every year. I mean, folks, in 10 years, then they're going to be nothing because I'm not trying to be a prick. It's just true. They'll be dead, many of them, most of them will be. So, the kids aren't going to carry on the legacy. They're a gross minority. So I think that it's going to be hard for them to reconcile voting for Joe Biden again, because they did vote for him in 2020. And I think they voted for him in 2016 too. I do. I think the difference is Trump did better with independents than Republicans have been able to do in Arizona in 16. And the independent has gotten away from them. That's not because of Trump. He's the last one to win them. It's because they are different. However, Trump's strength with Hispanics, and if Kerry Lake is the nominee for U.S. Senate, you're not going to have a combative ticket, a ticket that's at odds with each other. I mean, there are parts of Pinal County outside of Maricopa where Kerry Lake outperformed Donald Trump's vote margin with Hispanics. There are parts of Gila, obviously. So I think that the two of them combined are going to run very close to each other. I don't think you're going to see the spread like you're seeing with like Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania. And I'm not sure the Libertarian will be able to be enough to cost Trump from winning that. I just don't. I don't see it. There's going to be that independent guy that comes out there. Charlie Kirk, though, when I talked to Charlie, he is right. There is a lot of the vote that we are talking about that is that Trump-Kennedy overlay. There are a lot of them in Arizona. There are a lot of them in Nevada. Apparently, there's quite a few in Pennsylvania. So they're there. All right. All right. So going in order here, and I'm going in order. I'll get to some of the other ones. I meant to go in order, and I skipped Arizona on accident. Iowa's not one that's, a terribly big deal because we know Trump's going to win. He's going to win it regardless. All right. So last time in 2020 in the state of Iowa, which is easy to get on the ballot, you had Joe Jorgensen, you had Kanye West, Howie Hawkins, Don Blankenship, Rogue De La Fuente was on it, and others were as well. Ricky King, which was an independent, about 546 votes. Brock Pierce got 544, but Trump still crushed it. Iowa's not up for debate. those third-party voters are going to hurt both candidates. They're going to take some from them. Cornel West and Kennedy will both be on the ballot in the state of Iowa. If they move forward, they'll be able to get on the ballot. Did I say Kanye West? I meant Cornel West. But it won't matter. All right. So just to give you an idea, candidate, but for an MPPO to become a political party, it must do the following: place a candidate for president or governor on the generic ballot. That candidate must receive at least 2% of the vote statewide. So that's why they're on the ballot. They're just not being recognized as political candidates, political parties, because they're not getting the required vote in the prior elections, right? So even Jo Jorgensen did not meet that threshold. She only got 1.16% of the vote, which was an equivalent of 19,637 votes. So the candidate from the political party must continue to receive 2% of the general election vote for them to maintain qualified status. It's like being in good standing. If a candidate does not receive those votes, the party status will be revoked, and the process has to be repeated over and over again. It's an easy process, but what's not easy is getting that much of the vote. Okay? Again, when you had candidates like Don Blankenship, he was just running as an independent. Kanye West was just running as an independent. So the perpetuation of that organization as a political party doesn't really matter in this case, because they're going to be their own political entities. They'll be listed as an independent, but in truth, the political party itself is the organization of the campaign. See, the political organizations can't. So it'd be like, Robert Kennedy independent. That's all it's going to say. And that will be his actual party. It's totally different. All right, let's move ahead. What else is worth going on here? Maine is worth talking about if they were to be able to get on the ballot in Maine, because there were Green parties, there were Libertarians, and Rogue de la Fuente did get on the ballot in Maine, but only received 1,183 votes. Ironically, where did they come from? Not the 2nd congressional district. They came from the 1st congressional district. All right, so this is why I'm saying you have parts of Lewiston, Auburn, Harrison, even Otisfield, Casco less so, but Gray, New Gloucestershire. This is where a lot of these votes. Howie Hawkins and Standish, by the way, did better than statewide. Hawkins wound up with a point. He got 1%, 228, votes. Jorgensen got less than 2%, 1.73, or a little over 14,000 votes. But, you're not going to be seeing the 9-point margin that Biden won if you have West and Kennedy on the ballot. I think both of them are likely to draw from the 1st congressional district. This will be an instance where Kennedy likely is going to hurt Donald Trump. Anyway, Maine is one of the easier states to get on the ballot. So let's go ahead and talk about Maine. All right. Same thing here. If you're going to run as an independent like De La Fuente did, you're running as your own organization. The name of a candidate for governor or president in the most recent general election was nominated by petition and received at least 5%. That's not going to happen. The signed consent of the aforementioned candidate, the name, address, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So you have to put in a declaration to the Secretary of State with the following information. The declaration of intent must be filed with the Secretary of State before 5 p.m. 180th day preceding the next primary. So they're running out of time to be able to get on these ballots. They're getting close to missing some of the deadlines in the state. All right. You need, looks like 5,000 signatures, procedural requirements. So it's not that hard. It's for Maine anyway. It's really not that hard. And so the thing is, they got to get moving. Time is of the essence for them. The party must have held municipal caucuses if they want to maintain their status in a minimum of 14 counties during the election year in which the designation appeared on the ballot, and any interim election year, and must do the same during the year of a primary election. So one of the easier ones. All right. Michigan. I would say Michigan is probably in the category of not extremely difficult, but freaking difficult. It's hard. And they get challenged quite a bit. So let's go into a little bit of history here. It's difficult, but they could get on the ballot in Michigan. This is somewhere where I do think if they're together, they will get on the ballot. Why Blankenship got on, De La Fuente got on, so did Greens, so did Libertarians. It's just, again, they just didn't get that many votes. So this is a state where it will be crucial on how much vote they'll be able to hold. We're getting to you, Minnesota. I see you there. Minnesota is actually one of the ones where I think that first of all, I would consider Minnesota very easy to get on the ballot. But there are, how can I put it? I'm curious to see what Libertarians and Greens do in Minnesota. All right. So getting through, I'm going to read just this paragraph, and then I'm going to give you some other numbers that I know are not here. Okay. And I don't know why they're not, but some of it's given a percentage, and I'll try to break it down for you. Same thing. If you're going to run as an independent, that's your organization. That's your political party. You are you. In addition to the prerequisite petition that must be filed with the Secretary of State for recognition, the chairperson and Secretary of State Central Committee of said prospective party must file a certificate signed by both the chairperson and the secretary indicating the name of the party. This paperwork must be submitted to the Secretary of State by 4 p.m. on the 110th day preceding the general election. Petitions, they have time. We're about a year out. Petitions must contain signatures equaling at least 1% of all votes cast for governor at the most recent gubernatorial election. Additionally, party organizers must collect at least 100 signatures in each of at least one half of the state's congressional districts. And that's where it gets a little bit more tricky. But let me just do some real quick math, pulling up the 2022 elections. Let's go to governor. And I'm going to get the total here as soon as it loads up. Come on, governor. All right. So looking at Michigan, we have 4,461,000 and change. So, oh boy, so let's just do, what did I say again? What did I just say? 4,461,925. That's exactly the total amount. So you're going to need about, it's a lot more than I thought, actually. You're going to need at least 45,000. Why? Because they say 12,000 minimum, but now with the percentage rule, you're going to need about 45,000. And this is tough. I would actually say they're going to need more like 60,000 if they even want to come close. They will be challenged. They will be thrown out. We've seen a lot. I'm looking at instances of where a campaign gathered up 12,000 signatures last time and submitted the first 12. You go 12, 24, 36, and then hopefully you meet the rest. And they junked every single one of the 12,000 initially. So there's precedent for this. I don't know if there was one party favoring another at that time. Probably. But you're going to need 65,000. It's not easy, but it's not difficult either. So we'll put this in the moderate category. And again, we did see Howie Hawkins, Don Blankenship, and one independent, De La Fuente, get on the ballot in 2020. All right. So Minnesota, for those who kept asking and banging on it, Minnesota's an interesting one. I don't know if I'd call it, I don't know if I'd call it super easy because again, everyone is going to need, even Kanye got on the ballot in Minnesota last time. There was Kanye, Brock Pierce, De La Fuente was on, Gloria La Rivera, Raviva, whatever, and Allison Kennedy. All right. So there's been a Kennedy on the ballot before in Minnesota. And in fact, it was the last election the last presidential cycle. And then, of course, the Libertarian candidates and the Greens were also on the ballot. All right. But again, you do need organization, you need money, and you need to be, as Mark Halpern said on NewsX with our segment, you have to have a disciplined organization. Now that his sister-in-law, or daughter-in-law, who is CIA, is now running the ship instead of Dennis Kucinich. And let me just say something real quick. Mark Robert is 100% correct. Nobody leaves a presidential campaign. He got sidetracked. He got booted for her. To pretend as if Dennis Kucinich was just like, you know what? I helped him get this far, but I just don't want to do it anymore. Bull crap. Bull crap. Don't happen. People get canned, but they don't just go home. Minnesota recognizes both major and minor parties. They may qualify as a major under the following. Fielding one candidate. Must have fielded at least one candidate. They're not going to get this, obviously. So all of that is pretty much pointless, right? I mean, we don't have to read any of that. Let's go to qualifying as a minor party. A party may qualify as a minor political party via one of the methods described below. Fielding a candidate. Party must have fielded one candidate to any of the following offices: governor and lieutenant governor, secretary of state, state auditor, or attorney general at the last preceding state general election for office, or have presidential electors or U.S. senator at the preceding state general election. The candidates must have received votes in each county. In total, the candidate must have received votes equaling at least 1% of the total number of individual votes cast in the election. For example, 2,525,873 individuals in Minnesota voted in 2022, meaning that a party's candidate would need at least 25,259 electors in order for the party to qualify for minor party status. A party whose candidate meets these requirements becomes a minor party as of January 1st. All right. Or we can go the petition route. The party must present to the Secretary of State a petition for a place on the general election ballot. The petition must contain signatures equal to, you ready, at least 1% of the total number of individuals who voted in the preceding state general election. So we know, as we just did with our example, 2,525,873 voted in 22, meaning that a party in 23 would need to collect at least 25,259 signatures in order to qualify for minor party status. Now, they are not strict with geographical requirements, so that's why people are able to do it. The petition must be submitted before the close of filing period for the state partisan primary ballot. Upon qualifying for a place on the general election ballot, the party must field candidates in the method described above to maintain status. To be considered a minor party in an election in a state legislative district, the party must have fielded a candidate for a legislative office in a district who won at least 10% of the total vote for that office, or the party must present the Secretary of State with said petition, signatures equaling at least 10% of the total number of individuals who voted in the preceding state general election for that office. And then there are procedural requirements, which we don't really need to go through, but you get it. They'll get the certificate from the Secretary of State. They must get it by December 31st each general election year, demonstrating that it has adopted a state constitution, designated a state party chair, and held a state convention in the last 2 years. This is if you want to hold on. This major parties must nominate their candidates. Irrelevant. All right. It's major parties. Most of it is going for the petition to the Secretary of State because, of course, they don't have existing organizations. Again, last time in Minnesota, there were 3, 6, 9 candidates for president on the ballot. Biden and Trump, Jorgensen Hawkins, West and Pierce, De La Fuente, La Riva, and Allison Kennedy. All right. And that is a state that, you know, you can conceivably see them both on. But again, they're going to have organization. They're going to have it together. And another consideration here is this may be one of the few states where it is possible that it could hurt Biden. We've seen that before. Why? Because it's all about what made Minnesota close with Trump last time is one word. And I mean, last time in 2016, when the last time it actually was close. Because it was not close with Romney and Obama, or Obama and McCain. What made it close was one simple word: populism. And with Kennedy on the ballot and West both on the ballot, the question is whether or not Kennedy is going to take from Democrats. It's important to understand that Minnesota Democrats have their own party. They are not affiliated with the National Democratic Party. They refuse to. It's something they've resisted for many, many years. They don't want to be tied to the trend of the National Democratic Party. But of course, they support the Democratic nominee. They went all in for Biden in 2020. They knew that Trump slipped under their radar in 2016 and could defeat the nominee in that state if they didn't get their act together. So they did. They spent a lot of money. Biden won the state by like 7. I think we overestimated his margin by, yeah, he won the state by about 7 points, 7.2. All right. Our poll had Biden plus 10. We overstated Biden a little bit. That's an easy vote to cut into if you have Kennedy taking from truly disaffected populist Democrats who feel that the party and Joe Biden have gone in too much of a corporatist direction. But at the same time, he can't be pulling from Democrats who otherwise would vote for Trump because of that. The Iron Range, southwestern Minnesota, everything on the south in the southeast except for Olmsted. Hell, even Olmsted. Because if he was to pull, if Kennedy was to pull from Biden in a county like Olmsted, Trump could carry Olmsted. And we went over this last week, that what it would take for Donald Trump to win the state of Minnesota. All right. You need like all the political stars to align, but I do and have thought for a long time that it's possible. Clay is going to have to flip back, but there's only 34,000, 35,000 votes we'll expect to be cast in Clay. So you really can't. And actually, were there more candidates on that? No, I was right. 9 altogether. You can't have them pulling too much from you. Olmsted, Biden carried by 10 points, basically. That was shocking. Winona has to go back to Trump. It really does matter. I'm looking in those burbs, and this is why I'm leaning like Kennedy could hurt Biden in Minnesota in the same way he could hurt him in Maine, because I just don't see Trump voters in Hennepin or Trump voters in Ramsey, voting in Washington too would be very important. Voting for Kennedy. I would see it in the Iron Range, and I'd see it in more conservative parts of the state. I don't know. It's tough. And it's like, I will give Susan Page this. She is right. This is not easy math. This is not easy arithmetic because of how differently this could impact the Electoral College. So Minnesota and Maine are ones where I'm kind of leaning that it's possible Kennedy hurts Biden, but Kennedy hurts Trump more in states like Pennsylvania and Minnesota and Iowa. Again, he's going to carry Iowa, so it's not the point. But overall, to me, in my mind right now, like I said, I'm as certain as certain can be that I'm right, that it's a net negative. What, does it have to stay that way? No. But he's not going to get on the ballot in Georgia. So he's not going to pull black voters from Joe Biden. He may pull some write-in votes in central and southern Georgia from Trump. Will it be enough? Because he's not going to actually be on the ballot? No. I think Trump is going to carry it then. Arizona, same deal. But where he can get on the ballot, it could hurt. And we're going to get there. We're not even done with some of these states yet. All right, let's look at Nevada. I mean, it's not easy, but I wouldn't exactly call it one of the tougher, more difficult states. Don Blankenship eventually did get on, and Nevada has a none of these candidates option. I do think none of these candidates probably did hurt Trump a little, all right, in 2020. But let's read it. Qualifying a minor party. They must file a certificate with the Nevada Secretary of State, along with a copy of its bylaws. They must include this is why when Mark said, look, they need to be disciplined, this all needs to be right. The name of the political party, its officers, executive committee members, right? The person who's authorized to file a list of the party's candidates. And we're talking about one office here, though, right? So a minor party can maintain. No. If a minor party does not file a list of candidates, the party must file a notice of continued existence with the Nevada Secretary of State by the second Friday in August before the general election. If this is not filed, the minor party will no longer be recognized by the state. And that's why people will have the option to just vote none of these candidates. All right. They really need to get, here it is. This is done. Listen, if a minor party has to prove that it has voter support, how do they do that? It's done by circulating a petition to collect signatures from registered voters equal in number to 1% of the total votes cast at the last general election for the United States representative in all 4 districts. Petition signatures must be apportioned equally among the districts. That's what makes it more tough. In order to qualify in this manner, a copy of the qualifying petition must be filed with the Nevada Secretary of State before it can be circulated. The petition must be verified by the county clerk or the county registrar. All of this is kind of easy. It's just tape you got to jump through, and it's got to be filed by June 1st or the date that falls on a weekend by the first Monday in June in the year of the election, and must be turned into the counties for verification 10 days prior to that deadline. So in the summer, Nevada's one of them. We've read several others where they're going to have a very short period of time where before Labor Day, they have to have all their SHIT together. They have to have all these petitions filed, or really, they have to first, of course, draft them all. And I have a feeling they're going to get help legally doing this. I don't have a feeling they're going to get help, legal help doing it. Anyway, then it has to all be submitted, and they can't miss any of these deadlines. All right, so that's going to be, again, you have to be on the ball. And then when they get these signatures finally collected within the short period of time that they have to do it, because in Nevada, they have to approve it before you can start collecting those signatures. And you have to wait until early summer before you can ask for approval. So it's, there it is. So there, I'm just trying to read some of your... I'm just trying to read some of what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very clear he's running to hurt Trump. I think his statement, I don't know why you wouldn't take him at face value. I'm not for diving down these like holes. I'll take somebody at face value. If he was running to damage Biden in his opening announcement, his campaign ad, he would not have deceptively edited Donald Trump in his announcement video in his first campaign ad, in what essentially was like his attempt at a very fine people hoax. Go back and look at the ad. If he was really running to hurt Biden, he would be as flattering to Trump as possible without going so far to make him look bad that they had to edit things to make him sound like he was saying something he was not. You understand what I'm saying? There's a lot of stuff you could easily find from Trump that just kind of like you could, if you're trying to just come across, give the appearance that you're trying to hurt both of them, but you're really not, you could find an easy softball with Trump. He throws them all day, every day. Instead, they didn't do that. They went above and beyond to clip the man, to make him sound like he was saying something he really wasn't saying. And only those who actually watched the speech would know the full context. All right. So there it is. Last time, did I tell you guys this? Right. Don Blankenship got on, but others did not. Why? Because of that period of time in between. So I wouldn't rank it as like super tough, but it's tough to get on the ballot in Nevada. All right. North Carolina. We got to do that one too. My God. My goodness. Sorry, Laura. The Lord's name in vain. Don Blankenship got on the ballot in North Carolina, along with Jorgensen and Hawkins, but the other independent candidates did not. All right. There's not a big culture of independent candidates voting in recent elections in North Carolina like there is in, say, Minnesota and Florida. All right. So let's just go through. A political party is defined as, if they don't have those requisites to be defined as a political party, all right, then they have to try to form a new one, right? For a newly established political party to maintain its recognition, except we're not there. Any group of voters which shall have filed with the State Board of Election petitions for the formulation of a new political party, which are signed by registered and qualified voters in this state, equal in number to 0.25% of the total number of voters who voted in the most recent general election for governor. Also, that was 2020, by the way. Also, the petition must be signed by at least 200 registered voters from each of the 3 congressional districts in North Carolina. Doesn't sound all that difficult, right? any group of voters which shall have filed with the State Board of Elections documentation that the group of voters has a candidate nominated by that group on the general election ballot of at least 70% of the state in the prior presidential election. To be effective, the group must file their documentation with the State Board of Elections before 12 noon on the first day of June, here we go again, preceding the day on which it is to be held, the first general state election in which the new political party desires to participate. So again, you have all of these states that you have to have all of your stuff together, and several of them put this like short cap. Ballot access has been an issue in the United States for a long time. Petitions must include the name of the proposed party, which if an independent like Don Blankenship did, then you would need that's your party, but it will come across as just independent, but it is literally Don Blankenship, party. Petitions may be started at any time within a 4-year presidential election cycle. But again, you can't begin the work until a certain time. You can start the petition, get it all ready to go, but you can't actually start to submit the stuff that you need to complete that petition until the summer. After each presidential election, existing petitions for new parties that have not been finalized are voided and must be restarted. The proposed party name cannot contain any word that appears in the name of an existing recognized party or any word that may, in the judgment of the State Board of Elections, suggest similarity to an existing party. I am a little bit shocked that so many of these other states do not do this. I'm not saying that they're eventually going to have that, but it's like you don't want someone to be able to pirate off of another party. Petitions must also include the name and address of the state chairman of the proposed party. Verification of properly submitted petitions will be completed within 2 weeks of the date petitions are presented. In the first general election for which a newly created party qualifies, candidates must be selected by party convention. State law does not mandate standards by party bylaws for practices of political convention. In other words, there really doesn't need to be any convention. The matters are left to the discretion of the parties. All right. So, when you hear these rules, it's really not what it sounds. They're not going to hold a convention. They are the organization themselves as an independent candidate. All right. So literally they just have to write up. We 3 board members and as I, the chairman, I agree with the undersigned. He's the candidate. He or she. All right. New Hampshire has been revised. So bear with me a second. Let me just make sure I didn't have any other notes in my doc for New Hampshire. No. Okay. In New Hampshire, recognized political party is defined as any political organization, again, a campaign, at the last state general election won at least 4% of the votes cast for governor or United States senator. We don't need the 4 examples. You get it, right? There it is. Any political organization, however, may petition to have its name printed on the general election ballot. Petition papers must include the name of the political organization and must be signed by individuals who are registered to vote at the general election. No one can sign more than 1 nomination paper that grants a political organization access to the state's general election ballot. The organization must collect valid signatures equal to at least 3% of the total votes cast at the previous state general election. In 2014, for example, a political organ, and that's a low turnout election. That's 30-something%. That's it. Are you ready? Political organization needed to submit 27,179 valid signatures in order to get on the ballot. Just to give you guys an example, 620,000 votes nearly were cast in New Hampshire for governor in 2022. Almost 620,000. And they're going to need 3% of that. Valid. It's a heavy lift in a state like New Hampshire. And people have had success in the past, but not in the recent past. Joe Jorgensen is the only one who got on the ballot in 2020, excuse me. Libertarian, Jill Stein was one of the more successful Green Party candidates, but that's not normal. All right. Gary Johnson did a lot to get libertarians to be able to be recognized because of his vote share. Stein did not. A lot of these states, what are we seeing here? 4%, right? 3% to 5, 4, whatever. Different, giving these different numbers. Jill Stein was like 2% and below. Gary Johnson was right around where these were mandatory. So he's immediately qualifying that party. And in this case, it was the Libertarian Party. He's immediately qualifying them for the ballot in the subsequent elections. Now, because Jorgensen did so poorly, libertarians are going to have to go through the process of what we've been talking about all over again. So, for instance, Joe Jorgensen only got 1.65% after Gary Johnson put up the number he did. So now libertarians are going to, unfortunately for them, have to go through all that BS all over again. All right. Procedural requirements. Yeah, I mean, you're looking, folks, because if you need 3%, they're going to strike a ton of your votes away. So I'm telling you, you're going to need like 60,000 signatures. They're going to strike a lot of your signatures away. They are. That almost always happens. Why? Because campaigns go to vendors to get signatures, and those vendors are not particularly credible, and they have a lot of dirty tricks. It's part of the game. It's part of the business. I hate to say it. But they're not sending people out to go knock on doors to get all 30,000 or 40,000 signatures. They're not doing it. They have ways of going about it. And, unfortunately for the people who pay money, they don't hold up to scrutiny. All right. So, again, this is how Jorgensen, not her. I mean, libertarians share in the failure. But, Gary Johnson was able to get them on the ballot everywhere. It's going to be difficult for libertarians to even get back on some of these ballots. It's possible. They had broad ballot access in 2020 because of Gary Johnson. All right. And that's going down now. All right. So to be recognized, political parties are required to nominate their candidates by primary election. The chairman of a political organization must, at the time of declaration of intent, submit a list. And again, it sounds worse than it is. What's the filing period? Must file a declaration of intent within the first Wednesday in June and the Friday of the following week. So they have a less than 1 week window in many cases. Petition papers, all cases. Petition papers must be submitted by 5 p.m. on the Wednesday, 1 week prior to their primary. So not an easy task. It's difficult to get on there. What have we got left? We have Wisconsin we have to go over. I don't know if I want to go over Virginia, frankly. We can. I mean, it's just that, yeah, we can. Because, I mean, in the event that there's a complete and total collapse of support for Joe Biden, something like that can happen. But again, in the state of Virginia, despite, actually, though, let's go in order. Despite everything, in 2020, it was still only Joe Jorgensen who really was on the ballot in Virginia, even though it's one of the more easier states. You might remember McMuffin was on the ballot in 2016, right? And by the way, he had a disproportionate amount of support. I think it was, I'm trying to remember. I don't remember what year it was. It was for McMuffin, though, wasn't it? Court, came in and said, ballot access is too hard in the state. You need to change it. No, listen, it's possible that this could go, if Kennedy does end up on the ballot in Virginia, it's possible it could go both ways. And I'm going out of order here for a reason, because I think some of these other states, aside from Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, I just don't really see the impact. But the question in Virginia would be whether Kennedy takes from Nova. Right now, all polling, Suffolk, even others, I mean, that seem to indicate that he hurts Biden. He's not hurting Biden by taking professional class, advanced degree voters. So when you're looking at this, does that mean he's going to take more from Nova than he is from like the mountain region? And that's going to be one of Trump's, big, areas of support. By area, speaking of which, he was taking, same percentage from rural as urban, just about more from rural than a little bit urban, but suburban was the least. So You think about like Chesterfield. I don't see how he helps Trump there. I just don't. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see it. Anyway, recognition. A political party becomes officially recognized in Virginia when one of its candidates receive 10%. Of course, that doesn't happen. So that brings us to the petition process. In order to nominate a statewide candidate and seek official ballot status, a petition must be signed by 10,000 qualified voters. The petition must also be signed by 400 qualified voters from each congressional district. That's actually not that difficult. It must be signed by petitioners on or after January 1st of the year of the election only. And the petition must be filed with the State Board of Election by noon of the 74th day before the election. You just got to remember that crap and stay up to it. Good Google Calendar can help you out there. But there's a reason why they're not automatically given ballot access. Because a lot of people buff some of this stuff up. But Virginia is one of the easier ones to get on. Now, all right, let's go to Pennsylvania and then Wisconsin because we're running out of time. All right, let me see if I got the note. I think I put together the numbers already based on it. I did. All right, so not easy, but not difficult. That's what I wrote. I got to give you guys like a spectrum, but it's true. All right. Let's read it, and then I'll give you some numbers. A political party is recognized as such by the state when, quote, one of its candidates at a general election, next preceding the primary, polled in at least 10 counties of the state, not less than 2% of the largest entire vote cast in each of said counties for any elected candidate, and polled a total vote in the state equal to at least 2% of the largest entire vote cast in the state for any elected candidate. Further, political parties whose statewide recognition is less than 15% of the combined statewide registration for all statewide political parties as of the close of registration period immediately preceding the most recent November election are classified as minor political parties. There are a lot of them in Pennsylvania. And for those who are supporters of locals, when we do the Pennsylvania voter analysis, which we just did recently to give you a baseline before automatic voter registration, you saw there were a ton of them. Minor political parties are not eligible to participate in primaries and may only field candidates for the general election when they submit nomination papers. Political parties whose statewide registration is 15% or greater of the combined statewide registration of all statewide political parties nominate their candidates via primary. The relevant statuses do not establish a process whereby groups of voters may petition to be recognized as a political party. Instead, any group of voters that does not qualify as a political party is considered a political body. Candidates running for office as affiliates of a political body may designate the body in no more than 3 words on their nomination papers. Political designations will appear on the ballot alongside the candidate's name. All right, so you got to pay a couple $100 fee. It's $200. All right. They're going to need at least 5,000 signatures by the end of the summer that election year, which is like not, this next summer coming up. Kennedy's going to have to collect, I always do the rule of 3, but, let's say twice as many. Because as a percentage, there aren't that many independent voters or non-political voters in the state of Pennsylvania. The 2-party vote share is extremely high. And by the way, it has been trending Republican. So when you're trying to meet the 15% rule, independents aren't more than 15% themselves or non-party affiliates, right? Even, some of the minor independent parties. Together, they don't equal 15%. Typically, they equal like 14. And then you have libertarians, you got Greens, you got all these other ones. Together, maybe you get close to 18, but they never self-identify that much, and it can swing pretty dramatically. If the state continues to move to the right, and a lot of these people who, are older school Democrats, I think we're about almost done with that trend. It's coming a lot from new registrants, and of course it could be a lot more new registrants, but it's coming from people who are just kind of done, fed up. So it's shrinking the percentage of non-2-party affiliated voters. And that screws up your 15% calculation. I know it's kind of convoluted, but it's not hard on the surface. But because of Pennsylvania's unique partisan divide, very, very partisan, it could make it difficult. All right. Libertarians did get on in 2020. They'll get on again because of their rule as a major party. Or, they're not a major party, but they'll be considered it. But, Greens did not get on in 2020, and that's because it's difficult to meet that. It's difficult to meet that requirement with so few non-two-party voters. All right. And then that's the last but not least here is Wisconsin. Wisconsin's kind of easy. All right. In Wisconsin in 2020, did we go? We didn't go over Wisconsin, right? No. In 2020, Jorgensen, the Libertarian, of course, got on the ballot, but so did Brian Carroll, who was an independent, who was not on a lot of state ballots, and so did Don Blankenship, who we have talked about before. It is one of the easier states to get on. All right. I'm going to give you some numbers after we read this statute, part of the statute. Political parties entitled to primary and general elections are called ballot status parties. Everyone else is not. In order to qualify for ballot status party, they must meet one of the following criteria. At least at the last gubernatorial election, they received a certain amount of vote. Well, of course, we know that didn't happen. All right. So in order to obtain ballot status, the candidate for president didn't get 1%. So that's the end of that. Political organization that was listed as an independent in the last general, which he wasn't even, so they have to petition for ballot status. The organization must file that petition with the Wisconsin Government Accountability Board, containing the signatures of at least 10,000 qualified electors, including at least 1,000 from each of the at least three separate congressional districts. And it must be submitted by 5 p.m. on April 1st, p.m. Of an election year. So we're talking about this upcoming spring, and will entitle the organization to ballot status for the period ending with the general election. All right. And that's it. I mean, that's what it comes down to. They will be challenged, but it's doable. And I do think that that's one state where we could probably expect Kennedy to get on. West, I don't know. We'll see. There were issues before. It really does come down to organization. You got to be organized. Got to be organized. So let's real quick at the last couple, because that's it for battleground states. So before we cue out of here, why aren't some Dems abstaining from speaker vote to lower the majority threshold to let a rhino win? They wouldn't have to vote. Very simple. Look at the generic ballot trend. They'll eventually do that. I would expect them to eventually do that. Just as of right now, why would they? Their enemy is destroying themselves, making themselves look stupid, politically destroying themselves. I don't think the government's being hurt anyway. I don't care when government does nothing, frankly. But the generic ballot trend is reversing. Republicans are not doing well on the generic ballot, and you can see the Harvard poll was a great example of this. You can almost see a complete arresting of Democrats' negative trend in favorability, and we'll see if it's a reversal in the next month or so. But definitely an arresting of the negative trend, and Democrats are ahead on the generic ballot. Meanwhile, Trump is up, and Democrats are ahead. So they're going to wait, and they're going to wait and see how long they can milk this to continue, to hurt Republicans on the generic ballot, dig them a hole, that it makes it hard for them to climb out of when they finally get a speaker. I am a Republican Party, BPOU, company chair, county chair. Oh, okay. Do you think Minnesota's move to a primary instead of a caucus will have any effect? I do. Change happened in 2020 technically, but this is the first contested primary. I do, Ryan. I like primaries better. I think caucuses are fun. I think they're interesting, but primaries encourage more turnout. We're going to see, for instance, Wisconsin's different, Minnesota's different, because there's different demographics, but in a state like Nevada, it's just easier to explain. They're going to be the governor, changed it to a private Democratic governor. Republicans sued to try to keep it a caucus. That was ridiculous because there will be more non-white and younger people participating in a primary, and that increases the size of your tent. I personally am all in favor of high turnout elections, and I think it's better for governance. I think it's better for representative government when it's a higher turnout. And I think caucuses make it harder for a party to attract new people during their selection process. And that's ultimately who is selected is ultimately going to encourage or dissuade voters who otherwise would not vote for you from, potentially voting from you for the first time, So I like the idea of moving to primaries. I do. That's a great question. And I already know Minnesota's already a very high turnout state, but I happen to really, really like primaries. Open, closed, that's a different topic. I really do think it probably depends on the state. But the more people you bring into the party, the better. And the way to do that, of course, is to open up your doors and let people vote. Listen, I just want to say this on the speaker vote. I got a clip I want to play before we go. It's incredibly, incredibly important.
You have destroyed the cartel's control of the Republican side of Capitol Hill. If you take out Emory, look at the other 8, hey, there's some good people there. And we put up a chart to make sure that you see where they voted on the debt ceiling and others. It seems to me if you voted for McCarthy's debt ceiling deal, the worst in history, you can't possibly be considered a serious candidate. But we'll leave that forever. The first thing to do is to stop Emmer today. Once Emmer stopped, just want to repeat this, you have decapitated what they've invested with the cartel, the lobbyists, the corporatists, Wall Street. They've invested over 12 years. This is their team. And remember, it's all those staffs, it's all those political operatives, it's all the Jeff Millers of the world with McCarthy decapitated. This audience did that. Nobody else did that. You did this. You did this by.
All right, we didn't need the rest of that. But on Emmer, what he's talking about, Tom Emmer cannot stand Donald Trump. Tom Emmer played a key and pivotal role in sabotaging MAGA candidates that they thought that they could afford to replace because they were going to win so many other moderates in places they ended up not winning. And Tom Emmer is one of many, several, or a handful, I would say, on Team McCarthy, which don't you find is funny? McCarthy's pushing Emmer, who are responsible for a underwhelming performance. So if Tom Emmer gets the gavel, he will be rewarded for having failed the party. He's also K Street embodied, like Scott is, like Austin Scott is, and Bacon and others. It would have been, this is all for nothing. If the Republican Party got rid of Kevin McCarthy for Emmer, Emmer's even worse. Emmer's even worse than Kevin McCarthy. So Bannon is basically suggesting if you break the back of Emmer, then they have no choice. We'll see, Steve. We'll see. He may be right because I don't know how many more people they can turn to. But Emmer is not representative of the Republican Party. He's less so than Kevin McCarthy was. Even less so. So keep that in mind. Listen, don't forget to sign up for Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Best place to follow us. I know it was a whole lot of boring crap we had to go through today, reading statute, but that's the way it is. All right. We'll talk more about it on Locals, specifically about the individual states. And of course, from Locals, you can click on where it says support our polls, or you could just go to the link below in the video description and support and share the public polling project far and wide. We got Georgia up there. We still haven't finished the national. I already did the national, even though it wasn't fully funded. So I'm just going to take what is raised in the national and put it towards the Rust Belt poll. And then we're doing Georgia. There was a poll out in Georgia already showing Trump up at like 5 or 6 or something like that. So I know we were interested in that, but nobody's going to do what we're going to do with that poll. So it still is looking forward to doing it. But yeah, share it far and wide. I hope this gave you some perspective on, this conversation, because it's not just about what a national poll may say, even though our national poll I thought was pretty clear. It's where could he potentially get on the ballot? And I was going to make a map for where I think people will get on the ballot and where not, but I got to agree with Halbert. They haven't been very organized, coordinated, right? They just haven't. And it's difficult for me to predict whether someone's going to be on a ballot in a certain state, in many of these states. Some I think it's because it's so easy they will. But some are like, yeah, they're not so difficult, but you really have to keep up on it and get things done right. And I'm not in a position to be able to say whether or not they can or they can't. It looked very obvious that some of these other people would get on the ballot in 20 and they didn't. And then the lawsuits will come, right? Then the challenging of signatures will come. It is hard to get ballot access if you are running as an independent in this country. Very hard. And as far as Georgia goes, you might as well, when we poll Georgia, just put libertarian as a polling question, because anything else is a waste of money. We could put a write-in option and see how much RFK or West get when people are specifically asked, tell us who you would write in. But hell, that's their best bet in Georgia. You're not getting on that ballot. Be surprised if you get on it. All right, so with that in mind, I'm on my show. How about stop texting me when I'm on my show, and then I'll respond. People, unbelievable. Freaking journalists. You're a journalist. I'm on a show. It's like, did you hear the buzzes? It's like 15-second separation. Would you mind responding? Would you mind? How about that? I'm on my show. Oh, yeah, let me drop the show and respond to your stupid, pretentious ass. Man, freaking reporters. Unbelievable. The hell do you think you are? Why don't you do your job and research when I'm on my show and stop interrupting my close? Anyway, that'll do it for Inside the Numbers today. Don't forget to sign up on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. Good book club yesterday. Good book club. Nothing but love for you, folks. And I will see you on Wednesday, noon Eastern Standard. Just texted back. I'm on my show, and you believe these people, folks. Unbelievable. Very foreign wine. Don't forget,